All right, we are deep into October with another Off the Record on the Rocks with my good friend, Mr. Ancarino Lara. It's been a wild couple weeks. So much activity, a flurry of activity from the harvest moon that we covered here, all-time highs, to crypto deals being made in the ballrooms of Washington, D.C. We've got Jensen here in Washington today for the big Nvidia summit. Meanwhile, Trump making tariff deals over in Asia, and mainstream crypto adoption happening with Western Union partnering with Solana for stablecoins and IBM creating its new digital asset wheelhouse. I don't know what they're calling this thing. And over on your coast, the World Series on the best coast in the best stadium. What a game last night. How's it going on your side?
It was, well, first of all, October sometimes lately hasn't really felt like October. We were talking about a week or two ago, and it started to dip in a nice way. So definitely took advantage of buying a couple bags on the dips. But, Polymarkets are humming. Dodger baseball, how many games is it going to take for the Dodgers to win it? Clearly, the bet on 4 is long past. Last night, I felt like I watched 2 baseball games. It went a full 18 innings. It's at a new level. Like you talk about, going, gone. It's just one swing of a bat, and it feels like everything changes, both on the baseball field, but also like in these articles you just mentioned. What's old is new.
Grab a drink. It's time for another episode of Off the Record on the Rocks. Join Michael Toner and Ancarino Lara as we discuss the latest in all things Web3, AI, metaverse, and crypto. Tune out the noise and turn up the signal as we pour ourselves into the future. Better make mine a double.
Everything changes, both on the baseball field, but also like in these articles you just mentioned. What's old is new. These are old, stalwart financial companies, tech companies deciding not only are we going to jump into the future, but we're going to do it all at once and all during October. Like there's almost a frenzy, it feels like, as we're in the World Series heading towards Halloween. Everyone wants to put out press releases. Everyone wants to talk about stuff. It's a little overwhelming, to be honest, but it seems like Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum, these guys are staying in the chat and starting to try to break through at even country levels. I was stunned when you sent me that note about France finally just deciding we're going to start, we're going to get something that these thieves can't steal.
Yeah, France making moves into a 2% purchase of the Bitcoin supply, trying to, we'll cover it here. I pulled up the Polymarket as you were talking about the World Series. Looks like the Dodgers right now with 76 million in market volume on Polymarket, an 82% chance for the Dodgers to win the championship. Meanwhile, the Fed decision with Jerome Powell making a 25 basis point decrease, ranking in at 98% with 197 million in volume. These are big, big numbers. And one of the things I think we talked about on one of the last shows, just the fact that we can go from World Series baseball to Jerome Powell Fed decisions, it's all being considered the same asset now, which I think is why this conversation around digital assets has really entered that mainstream chat. That was probably the biggest one to me this week. IBM announces new platform for financial institutions and regulated enterprises entering the digital asset economy. They're calling it the digital asset haven. And IBM is going to provide, it says, clients can manage digital assets across various blockchains, all while conforming to their sovereignty, security, and compliance requirements. And that's from yesterday, October 27th, IBM putting out a press release announcing this new digital asset haven. And I think that is a real big takeaway, to go from betting on Fed decisions to betting on sports, which has been in the market for a long time now, to now betting on anything that can be digitized, which is maybe a great segue into something I caught from Jensen at GTC. I haven't watched a lot of the coverage, but I did see him talking about tokenizing everything.
I'm so happy you brought that back up.
Everything from data to video. Give me your take, but that's what we're doing. We're tokenizing it all. It's all going to be a digital asset, and now IBM is going to help you trade it.
Yeah, and it's called a haven. It like they went through the thesaurus and were looking at all of the synonyms that they could possibly use. Safe places. And they're like, well, I like the word enclave. Like, no, sorry. Cupertino and Apple, they already took the enclave. Okay. I like cul-de-sac. No, that's too French. All right. Well, I like, and you can keep going on haven. Hey, or, Oasis was probably in there. Like, no, that's Ready Player One. There's only so many words and they nailed haven. But yeah, I mean, this is, you talk about like the bet and what we are betting on and how the tokenization is really the fundamental underlying technology of making these bets, right? A token has to be validated. The Dodgers either are going to win the game or they're not going to win. A binary token. Jerome Powell is either going to reduce the interest rate or he's not. These are the easiest things to flip coins on because it's a binary choice. But the tokenization, we were just talking about this.
I love that, by the way. I love that.
Can flip these coins. But the tokenization is a word that for a second, I was just having a call earlier this week talking about this. The tokenization was the darling term. Like, the fractionalized ownership, all the things that come off of that concept of tokenization was starting to get lost in the sauce. Because now in front of every company, it says AI driven blank, AI supported blank, AI powered blank. AI started to become the buzzwords. Tokenization was too techie, too nerdy, drifting away. But now the good folks at IBM, the good folks at Nvidia, everyone else like, hey, shaking everyone back awake and saying, hey, this AI stuff is cool, but it doesn't work unless you tokenize everything. AI might be a layer that gets you to the truth, that analyzes the validity of what's true or not true. But the tokenization is where it lives. And I mean, I don't know if IBM actually even knows what they're talking about, because when you read the press release, I was laughing because when you see this, I mean, people talk about word soup or when you're just pulling out random terms. But when you hear someone like Clarice Hege say, for digital assets to be integrated into core banking and capital market systems, the underlying infrastructure must meet the same standards as traditional financial rails, which literally is a really long way of saying we're going to follow the same banking procedures, but with the digital, they're not really saying anything. And that's why I sort of wonder when talking about going beyond custody, orchestrating the full digital ecosystem. And to me, it feels like IBM wants to play. They have a whole bunch of people who want to partner to come up with what that's going to look like. But again, the tokenization underlying this is the same concept that's going to be underlying the Polymarket bets and even some of the things that we saw with this new Western Digital thing, Western Union.
Is the intersection of AI and blockchain, because when you hear tokenization, some folks may immediately think blockchain of NFT, NFTs are tokens, non-fungible tokens. But in the realm of artificial intelligence, tokens are, and I'm reading here, the fundamental units of text that models use to understand and process language. And so in the concept of AI and Nvidia and Jensen out there talking about tokenization, he's talking about turning things into LLM friendly data, AI friendly data. And that can be images or video or audio or your likeness or stocks or sports bets or anything you can imagine can be quote unquote tokenized in such a way that now AI can understand it. And so these fundamental units of text that models use to understand and process language, it's breaking down data into
its core pieces, its atomic state. And right now it's referring to that as text. I mean, we talk, your analogy, I think, is a great one, is that the cryptocurrencies really are what are funding so many of these, these AI projects. But that's cryptocurrency as a substitute for tokens. I mean, even when you go and you try to develop an image using DALL-E, or you try to create a video using Sora, you're using what you're conceptually referring to as credits. I think OpenAI refers to them as, which is just another classic sci-fi generic term for future increment of value, or rather in the future, the way we'll talk, because you need something that unifies across galaxies. When you walk into the Star Wars cantina, that you're going to buy that foamy drink, and it's going to be this many interstellar credits or this many AI tokens. We're just using these different words to describe the same underlying fundamental thing. It's like we're crunching up real life into these little pellets, these like little rabbit food pellets that we have to go to a special store to get so we can feed our pet AI, which we have in our little box on our desktop.
Well, this world that we're crunching up is what Nvidia likes to call the omniverse, and this digital twin of the physical world, this augmented reality, this alternate reality. I want to get back to Sora. We talked about this the last time, but talk about tokens in your identity. It has really continued to drive the meme machine across all of the social platforms. That ability to create and cameo and put anyone into any scene. I have seen some of the craziest AI videos really in the last 48 hours, things becoming a little more unhinged recently. I've seen things that are kind of vile in nature coming onto my feed, stuff that I wouldn't have normally seen in the algorithm that's now getting served. I don't know. It's getting real messy inside of Sora land, but real entertaining. A lot of tokens going in and a lot of tokens coming out with new content, new derivatives. And seems like Sam Altman's got a stronghold right now on this video generation meme maker.
Well, certainly. I mean, here on the West Coast, you probably caught the article I sent where, there's now a group of, call them seasoned professional actors, right? It's never the 22-year-old actor. It's the actors in their 50s and 60s who start to come up and start shaking their fists, like the old people sitting on the park bench yelling at clouds to move out of the way of the sun. They have this aged behavior, which is, I think, Bryan Cranston, Scarlett Johansson, these different people who are standing up saying, no, you have to protect the likeness of celebrity. The celebrity, and let's just put influencer into that same category, right? The group of people who make a living or sway opinion because of their name, image, and likeness are starting to rise up with their pitchforks and storm the castle because old Sammy Altman, the mad Mr. Frankenstein, has created this tool that allows you, me, and everyone on the planet to memify anything. So the pulling back of all these things, to me, it's so ironic because the thought process would be, well, if you are a celebrity or an influencer and you have any followers as of 2 weeks ago before Sora launched, then you have a face and a name and image and a likeness that is now a permanent part of the LLM. Like you actually are crunched up real life data that's being fed to the AI in the box on my desktop. But let's say you go get a movie job in a year. Well, no one's going to know who you are because the LLM hasn't crunched you up unless they're only watching your Sora videos. So what these guys in Hollywood I don't think realize is if they just were to tokenize, if they were to really think about their NIL and how to maximize value, they could be ubiquitous, like American legends and fables. In 100 years from now, people will remember, that great show Breaking Bad, because there's no such thing anymore as a great show. There's just great 8-second clips that make you giggle for a second and move on to the next thing. I think that they're missing the forest for the trees, but time will tell.
Well, and you said these videos are coming out on my desktop, and I immediately thought that's the other part of the market that Sam Altman is trying to corner. And I've seen some of your Sora videos talking about Chrome Man behind the bar with Sam Altman cameoed in his own meta meme, talking about whether or not he needs Chrome. We don't need no stinking Chrome. That is ChatGPT launching Atlas to directly go after the Chrome market. I can't believe we didn't start here because of all the predictions that you have made on this show. This has got to be one of the earliest tells that we got to as we were going down those halls of the metaverse. I remember distinctly the analogy of walking down that Twitter hall, walking down that Facebook feed hall, that Instagram, and what is Chrome? What does it have a stronghold on? This window to the internet, to Web 2. What does Sam Altman and ChatGPT now need as they back Google search into a corner? We don't need no Google search. You need an agentic browser that can help you do your job, that can help you find exactly what you're looking for using artificial intelligence. Introducing ChatGPT Atlas, the browser with ChatGPT built in.
You know, we could see it. We knew the access point, right? Sam Altman is not going to make a phone. Sam Altman is not going to make, a social media service. There's a very specific things he's going to do. And yeah, to try to buy Chrome, I think the Perplexity play, by the way, was one just to make Chrome overvalued. That there was that Google called in Perplexity and just said, can you make an offer to buy this? That's so outside of even your company's ability to raise that money, just to put a price tag on it, like at a garage sale, so that people will just walk by and be like, well, I can't afford that. And yeah, so when you think about that browser now, what I don't think I envision at the time is that the hallway would lead to a place which is familiar in that it's a browser, and the browser has tabs. But when you layer in a browser that's empowered by agents, and you think of each tab as its own agent, like right now, we'd have this behavior from people working on Web 1, Web 2, where you keep a bunch of browser tabs open. Sometimes it's a reminder of what to do next. Sometimes you're working on one doc, you're copying and pasting to another, or whatever it is you're doing. You might even have like Adobe, one of the new Adobe Experience Manager, services up there in a browser rendering an image for you, which is basically like a web version of Photoshop. So many things you can do in a browser. But now to basically tell the tab, your name is agent working with the DMV, and this next tab is my bank, and next tab is my airplane, next tab is my image curation, and I've just left prompts in each of the tabs so that my agents can go off and do stuff. And now when I leave, all my tabs are active, they're doing things, and it's not like the old days where you just have this piling on effect of open loops of just like tasks you haven't closed. That's the part that I think that we didn't know back I think it was 2 years ago we were talking about this, but agent as a concept hadn't existed. And that's where he couldn't launch the browser without the agents. What we learned now is the agent came first, the browser comes second, and now true tokenization of everything that you do in the browser is going to come third. It's just they may not use the word tokenization. It may be use something else.
This may be a little bit of an aside, but I think I love that analogy. You're talking about the tabs and moving between, I feel like I'm functioning as the agent when I go about my day and I'm working and I have to move from this tab and I need information from this tab and I need to go into this program. And then I go click over here and then I have to paste it over here. And then I got to type whatever titles and descriptions, and then I got to hit publish, and I got to go grab a link, right? There's all these little things that I, as the agent, am orchestrating throughout the day. That's the value that we as humans create with the computer. But I saw, and this is I'd say weird shout out, but I saw a demo from Vergent AI. And I know the CEO, he basically published this sandbox agent, which really made things click for me when I started to see he was allowing me to assign agent personalities. So the way this little demo works is I can basically hire 4 employees and I can call them Alice and Bob and Charlie and Diana. And I can give Alice a friendly and enthusiastic AI strategist who loves helping businesses. And she's all about change management and roadmap planning. And then I can have Bob over here, he's the systems guy. He's the IT expert, the systems architect focusing in on implementation. And then I can have this personality, Diana, who's the designer thinking about UX and personality. And I can literally give one prompt as the boss and have the 4 agent personalities start chatting with one another. And I can set parameters of how long I can let them chat. They've got 30 minutes to figure out this problem. the equivalent of
of a meeting.
Right, exactly. And I can sit there and watch the transcript of this meeting play out from these AI agents and personalities who I have prompted each one with additional skills. And at the output, I can make them make the decision and make the recommendation. The whole point of this, I think, is to begin that abstraction layer of AI, of how humans are going to be able to use it to make better decisions, to create better outcomes, to in this case, it's a good example of if you trained the AI to allow for inclusivity, right? You could avoid other biases that might appear. By design, I could create that in both the input and the output that I am hoping to get from this particular AI. It's just
so that one to me that starts to tread into the uncanny gulch, if you will, as it applies to AI. The uncanny gulch being the robot, sort of the concept that when a robot becomes too human, that we distrust it. That there's a separation, there's this divide that we as humans like a robot to seem a little more robotic because we trust it more. But if it becomes too much like, a movie Android where it's almost impossible to see replicants or whatever until you actually knock them out and look at their circuit boards. What you're describing to me, especially on the heels of, there's an announcement today, which caught me off guard, which is Amazon just announced they're laying off 30,000 employees. Okay. That's a lot of people. And if you're saying, okay, I have a team of people and they're sitting over there, like you just said, I got Charlie, Diane, Bob, I forget the first one you mentioned, and Alice, and they're real people. And now I'm like, well, wait a second. I can't afford all these people. However, I'm going to go into this tool and I'm going to recreate a digital twin of my whole team because my team is really good. They work really well together. I'm going to write in the personalities of these 4 agents that are exactly the same, or at least my prompt description of the real humans that are just sitting in the room over there. I mean, I might even include the fact that Charlie and Alice are having a romantic relationship and I can't trust them because one of them's always covering up the other one's lack of work or whatever. I could put in every human detail and then start the conversation, and at the same time have a conversation with the real humans in the room and see at a certain point with me modifying the prompts, I'm going to get my 4 digital twins of my actual team to perform better than the 4 people in the other room. I'm just going to walk in there and have the 4 digital twins hand those 4 real people their pink slips and tell them, see you later. I don't need you anymore. You know what I mean? That's the uncanny gulch there where you're getting to a point or assigning human personalities to AI agents to talk to each other. We used to say this back in the old days. You know the toy Furby? What a Furby is, right? So this is going back to the turn of the century when we get into it, when there was an echo chamber meeting where you felt like you sat for 30 minutes and you came out and you felt like you didn't get any further than you were when you walked in, because a Furby was that toy with the little blinking eyes and it would kind of talk to its, to you or to whatever. But if you bought 2 or 3 or 4 Furbies, you could put them all facing each other and they would just talk to each other until their batteries run out. They would basically kill themselves talking to each other. That I'm starting to worry that we're going to be creating these digital twin Furbies that just go into these chat prompts for hours, and you come out on the other end and you're like, oh, what actually did I get from this except for a really entertaining back and forth, maybe more entertaining than the 4 humans in the other room? I don't know.
Well, okay, so you paint a bleak picture there. I get excited about it because I think people who know what needs to go into a decision and understand what the output is they're looking for. What is it that I even need my employees to do in real life? What job do they do as a boss, as a manager, right? Isn't that you're not supposed to give your employees a task unless you yourself know how to do it? How are you supposed to teach somebody or describe someone how to do the job? I think that is where I see, and yes, it's very sad to see and hear, and I think we're in for a bleak winter in terms of 30,000 people at Amazon. That's probably the tip of the iceberg. And where other companies are just not hiring, right? I've seen those projections from Walmart on their latest earnings that they're projecting these crazy earnings into 2026, but they're not going to be growing their team. So where is that efficiency coming from? Likely from AI. Well, that's when, folks need to start to think how you can use these tools to get ahead, to seize this opportunity, to, if you know how to do a job, how can you use AI to do it better, faster, more efficiently? I don't know.
Yeah. I hear where you're coming, but I mean, I meant to paint it bleak just because it's dramatic. But on the heels of an announcement that's very real, affecting a lot of people, and who knows what those job functions are. Like you say, it is the tip of an iceberg. It's just when companies steer into what is a very obvious way to, over time, supplant, or you would say maybe augment or enhance your existing teams, but ultimately, it's saying, over time, there is going to be a need for humans to train, and this is the word that we use. You have to train the AI. You have to train using the LLM. You have to use these tokenized nuggets of real world information that the AI machine knows how to eat and then spit out something new on the other side. That the constant training, by definition, means that your AI agent will eventually, it's just a matter of how much time and how many tokens you can provide it. How many quarters can you pop into Donkey Kong until you finally beat the Donkey Kong machine? And this is like, how many tokens can I get in there until finally, yeah, my agent actually can do my job better than me because I've given it everything I have and I've trained it just so. Now can I do twice? Do I have double the output? Or does the company and the boss say, well, really, the tokens that we're feeding the AI don't cost us nearly as much as the paychecks we pay you? There's a tipping point that we're, I think, quickly coming towards, and maybe Amazon is the bellwether, but like that news drops, and usually that's a big story, and it was kind of buried. And that's a major story, especially right during October, right before we head into the holidays.
Yeah, and I feel like it's definitely timed with all the other chaos in the market, the Trump tariff news, the saber rattling happening from Putin, and the Nvidia conference here in DC, and I think I mentioned that big investment from Nvidia into Nokia. Again, I think that probably overshadowed, at least feeling like, positive investment. Although you may have seen that
into Intel, right?
No, into Nokia.
Into Nokia?
Yeah. Oh. As a
right. Yeah.
Telesystems infrastructure, basically.
Well, it also sort of, just to bring it around to something you were just mentioning, the new, this administration has not even been in power for a full year. And already the rules around spending money to buy things have changed, in the sense that it used to be you had to go to Congress and say, hey, we need to upgrade this or this, and we're going to, make a pitch to the whole rotunda of people, the whole gathering, and we're going to, raise funds to augment this part of our infrastructure as a country. But that requires a lot of time and a lot of energy. So now, if you want a new airplane, let's just say, your friends at Qatar Airlines can just donate a new plane and call it Air Force One. It's a gift. Well, if you can do that and that passes muster, then you could say, well, we don't really have a good gathering place here at the White House. The West Wing is sort of locked down, but this East Wing, I mean, it's just sort of this old antiquated foyer, and, it's center to whatever, some crappy carpets. How about we just call all the pals of ours who were at the rotunda during the inauguration, just ask for donations, and let's build a brand new ballroom, and let's just drive bulldozers into the side of the White House and showcase it to the world that, hey, if you have money, you can mostly get off of crimes, and if you don't, you'll have a muted sentence, and if that's not enough, you might even be able to get a pardon, like old CZ, or maybe what Diddy is going to end up getting. And if you have enough money, you can just build a gold lavish ballroom and not really ask anyone's permission. That this new to me is like, well, what's now the next step? What if the United States government just says, well, we're going to part own, this tech company, The United States already has active contracts from the DOJ to Microsoft, to Apple, these different, the DOD, different contracts that are government funded. But at some point, the United States government might start buying equity in these companies through donations.
I don't know if you saw this today. I think it was Representative Ro Khanna putting up this bill that would prohibit the Trump family and I think other elected positions from basically accepting crypto, or buying and trading their own meme tokens. I'm also reading an article here that's from CoinDesk from today. Crypto backers for Trump's ballroom project remain largely in the shadows, but they're talking specifically about donations from Coinbase, Ripple, Tether, Gemini, and the executives at those businesses sort of, remaining quiet on how those donations, which that list came out of these private donations, who owns it then, right? It's a good question. In the people's house, if we're fractionalizing the ownership and we're allowing purchasing of tokens,
tokenization of the ballroom of the White House. Yeah. So I feel like we're just one step away from it's also the case where this disintermediation, this remixing, right? It goes back to the Sora and the remix, and you can go forever on remixing an idea and see what's in everyone's head at that moment in time. Well, if you disintermediate the dollar and the stock market because there's a tokenized version of the stock, it's not the stock itself. This is something we talk about a lot. It's the derivatives market, and it keeps derivating on itself. It's the memification. Then there's a scenario where the Winklevoss twins, who run Gemini, donate money, but it's a tokenized version of the money to buy the ballroom. So there's not actually fiat cash being donated, but there's also not even real crypto being donated, because maybe I'm just providing an ETF, an electronically traded fund, that's a basket, a bundle of tokenized derivatives of real world assets. And that's the value that I give that then gets unwound on the other end to cut a check to the guy driving the bulldozer. Like, if you disintermediate it just once, then I'm not handing you money. You're right. I own a tokenized I own a digital twin of a chair at a circular table in the ballroom, so that I can know that the Winklevoss twins, can come 4 times a year and they have a little seat with my name on it. Then maybe I can only see if I have my, Meta Ray-Bans on, but it's there. And then maybe it changes for the next group who comes in. If this space could be more metaverse-like than we think, especially with all of these tech backers. It's going to be interesting. This could be the forum for a new way to broadcast state level events. Like, it's not going to be the Oval Office. We're going to be coming to you live from the digital ballroom, right? And maybe not everyone's actually even sitting there, but it looks like they are.
Yeah, and let's talk about a real world asset that you can invest in, and you can also just buy a seat. You don't actually have to go sit in it, but you own a part of it, your influence over it. You can show people your digital receipt of what your tokenized influence perhaps may be. I think I don't know how to make the segue here, but I think that if we're talking about derivatives and what's actually getting paid for, and at the same time, we're not talking about it in, I guess they're putting a US dollar price tag on it, but no doubt crypto is a part of that conversation, even of the companies who are donating. I think the big news, and we started to touch on this, and I want to make sure we get to it today, but France welcoming this reserve bill to purchase 2% of Bitcoin supply. This is from October 28th today. Godfrey Benjamin at Yahoo Finance this morning. France has introduced a bill to accumulate 2% of Bitcoin's fixed supply in a bid to become the first country to establish a BTC strategic reserve in Europe. That sentence should stay: a first country in Europe to establish a BTC strategic reserve, because they will not be the first to do it, but definitely won't be the last. We heard early announcements earlier this year about the formation of the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. Michael Saylor was making the rounds. I think right now, in this government shutdown period, that bill, that market structure bill, the Clarity Act, that still needs one final vote to give this overall market structure. My guess is it is the thing that will allow for the announcement of the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. You've got to create this market structure in digital assets, especially if IBM's already out the back gate selling services on how to manage them in their digital haven. You need to pass the bill in order to make it truly legal without fear. It seems like everyone's kind of operating like they know what the outcome's going to be. We can go ahead, we can take crypto, you can buy ballrooms, you can buy sponsorships, whatever you need. But let's get the bill passed. I know Brian Armstrong, the team at Coinbase, was here in DC last week. A lot of big events happening around the future of finance here in Washington. My guess is that as the government reopens, this will be one of the first bills to hit that vote. My other guess is we can start to watch the Polymarkets, but it's going to be before Thanksgiving. It'll be the longest shutdown in American history. So it's got to go at least past the 54 days of the last one. And it will be the thing where the U.S. can now enter that same chat of France buying up 2% of the supply, that the United States will at least project whatever they've already bought.
Or whatever they've already seized. Because remember, we have the ability to just.
We got to talk about CZ.
We have the ability to just seize. Like, for example, with CZ, a convenient rhyme with the word seizing, is that I want to say it was $2 billion or was it $4 billion? It was a very large amount of money that he had to pay, whether he paid that in crypto or not. I'm pretty sure they confiscated a fair amount of his Bitcoin. But that part about this story that really makes me smile is that you're France. Okay, there's 30, 40 more countries on the planet like now. But France is one of them, and it's very important, right? It's hard to argue that they're not. And they say, well, we're just going to go get 2% of the supply, and we're going to go do that in the next, was it 5 to 7 years or something like that? It's a very short window that they're saying. So when the United States, as you're saying, finally comes around to where we make an announcement, you better believe that if we make an announcement about our strategic Bitcoin reserve, it's going to be higher than 2%, right? France can't have 2 and America can't have 1.5. We probably already have more than 2, just seizing it from people like CZ and other companies, or Sam Bankman-Fried. Haven't talked about him in a while. So if France, let's just say France and 30 other countries all raise their hand and say, well, we're also going to get 2%. Okay, well, now we're at 60% of the total, and everyone's going to get that in 5 to 8 years. It really makes me wonder if anyone even understands how Bitcoin works. That there are more than 100 years before we find all of the Bitcoin, but they're just going to get 2% of it between now and the end of the decade.
Yeah, we got it. We're just going to go buy
just in time for the Olympics, which was one of 2 things are going to happen. Either one, you're going to start seeing foreign governments starting to seize the crap out of crypto from all kinds, like sanctions are going to turn into just, sorry, this is a cease and desist, and by the way, we're taking all your crypto and we're going to somehow confiscate it. Or the price of crypto is going to get so high so fast because you're going to be competing with someone who I'd never even heard of, Gregory Raymond, who is clearly some big whale who got in the ear of everyone in France to say, we're doing this. Explain to me how it is that you could possibly say by the end of this decade, you're just going to go get 2% of the Bitcoin. I mean, just think about it sounds like something that my mother would say, the Twitters and the Facebooks took the Bitcoin. No. That's not actually how it works. You just have to, what are you going to do? And they're talking about building a mining rigs and things. And guys, the halvenings are coming. You don't just snap your fingers and get 420,000 Bitcoin.
Right.
Well, tell me how it works exactly. And then when the next country comes in, what happens? What do they do?
I think that the fix is already in. I think these countries will go in a specific order. I think part of these tariff deals and who's paying who and who has influence over who and who's going to control these new financial rails that really aren't that big of an update. We're going to follow the same banking procedures that we always had. We're just going to have more instantaneous transactions, including our guys over here at Western Union who are going to set up a Solana trading thing where you're going to be able to trade money instantly all over the world. Yeah, Western Union, you ever heard of them?
Well, then that makes sense, because as long as you can control the printing machine and make more Solana or Ethereum or anything else, it makes total sense. I mean, I think it'd be funny to say, hey, we're going to be the next country to acquire Bitcoin, and we're going to get 2% of the Bitcoin between now and the end of the decade. Okay, well, sir, how are you going to do that? Well, we're going to go confiscate Francis. because if it's a finite resource, I mean, we're already dealing with rare earth metals with Japan. We're dealing with, whatever with China. We have all these these resources, these assets. I mean, besides like a pretty strong nuclear power grid, I guess France gets more Bitcoin. And then at what point does someone just try to come and take it from them? Because it doesn't require you to drop boots on the ground and drones in the air. You can just hit some buttons and maybe do some transfers, and maybe you can steal some Bitcoin. Clearly, there are tactical teams, I'm sure, working right now in our government, in our cyber force or space force, who are figuring out, well, gosh, we probably need, to confiscate a lot more Bitcoin. And all we got to do is target someone like these boats off of Venezuela's coast or wherever those were, and say, hey, this is a threat to national security. Well, what's on the boats? Is it cocaine? Is it heroin? Oh, no, it's Bitcoin. That's
on their phone.
It's on their phone. It's on the boat, technically. We're going to go get it. We're going to confiscate it. The same way we confiscate everything else on the boat. I think that's the new narrative. We're going to start to see that there's we don't need to go acquire land anymore. We don't even need to go get oil. We got all these deals in place. There is a Bitcoin race that's going to be on, and it's going to get messy.
Well, an energy race too, and I think
Bitcoin
is energy. That's a Michael Saylor quote right there. And I think with the other announcements from Nvidia today, building these giant supercomputers, I think the deals that you're seeing with the folks in Dubai, that all about the energy dominance, where oil will play a part in that, where it won't, where nuclear will take over, and where it won't. We're flying into Halloween. I haven't checked the moon cycle recently, but I would keep looking towards higher highs, especially based on that Polymarket. If the Fed rates are going down, gold's already peaked. Sounds like that rotation into BTC, and France is buying it. So let's go.
Yeah, I mean, and for those guys, I think they're 90% dependent on nuclear in France. That's something that they doubled down on that decades ago, which would put them in a position, if you were kind of playing out the thought process there, they have the ability to create, basically, by earthly standards, an unending flow of electricity off this nuclear power to mine Bitcoin. So maybe they actually do see a path mathematically just to getting 2% by the end of the decade, just going hard on it. But yeah, look to the heavens. Halloween is going to be tricks and treats, but I feel like October it might just roll into November, and Thanksgiving is real late this year, right at the end of the month. People get distracted as they head into that. Usually it cuts off, the productivity for the year, and kind of a wash between then and Christmas. But we have a whole 4 weeks ahead of us. And I think that, no, not financial advice, but financial advice. Get some bags while it's low. I think it's going to keep going up.
We'll see you in November. We'll do it again.
Talk to you next month.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Off the Record, On the Rocks. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. See you next time for more news and all things crypto and Web3.